So welcome everyone to our webinar, Practical Self-Regulation Tools for Children with ADHD. This webinar for parents and caregivers will focus on how to help children with ADHD self-regulate and will offer practical strategies for sensory and motor tools for everyday life. Our presenter today is Miranda Doherty from the BC Children's Hospital Provincial ADHD Clinic. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us today. My name is Michelle Horn and I'm the Program Manager for the BC Children's Kelty Mental Health Resource Center. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge with respect and gratitude that I live and work on the beautiful, unceded Coast Salish traditional territory, and I give thanks to the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I also wanted to provide a very brief overview of the Kelty Mental Health Resource Center. So we're a provincial mental health and substance use resource center, and we assist families across the province by helping with understanding and navigating the mental health system, listening and offering peer support from parent peer support workers through a collaboration with FamilySmart, and also connecting families to resources and tools. We will be putting our contact information back up at the end of the presentation, so don't feel you need to write anything down right now. This webinar recording, as well as the PowerPoint slides, will be available on our Kelty Mental Health website at keltymentalhealth.ca/ADHD webinar series. So the PowerPoint slides are actually already available from this link, and the recording will be made available from this link within about a week, so by February 3rd. You'll also receive an email with this link tomorrow, so no need to copy that down either. A few housekeeping notes before we begin. So as mentioned at the beginning, everyone is automatically muted and your cameras are turned off, so you don't need to worry about us seeing or hearing you. You will have an opportunity to ask Miranda questions after her presentation. So please submit any questions through the Q&A icon you'll see at the bottom of your screen. There has been an option enabled where you can vote for questions that have been asked by others that you would also like to see answered, as well as an option for you to submit your questions anonymously. Please submit any technical or logistical questions, such as if you're having issues with audio, through the chat function. At the end of the webinar, a survey will pop up, and we would really appreciate your feedback so we can enhance and improve our future webinars. We also just wanted to note that the information in this webinar applies to the context in British Columbia. If you're in another jurisdiction, please consult your local health authority for further information. So it's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Miranda Doherty is an occupational therapist who has over 20 years of experience in pediatrics after graduating from McGill University in Montreal. She earned a Master of Rehabilitation Science from the University of British Columbia and is currently the interim clinic head of the BC Provincial ADHD Clinic at BC Children's Hospital. She holds a clinical faculty position with the Department of Occupational Science and Occupational Therapy in the Faculty of Medicine at the University of British Columbia. So I'll pass it over to you now, Miranda.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Welcome, everyone. I see people are signing in as I'm speaking. So I would also just like to take a few moments to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples for my family and myself. This includes the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Semiahmoo, and Tsawwassen nations on which we live, work, and play. So I've actually included a picture here of Burns Bog in Delta, where I live. And I feel it's an important part of truth and reconciliation for all of us to participate in. And so I've included a link there at the bottom of your screen to nativeland.ca. And I invite you to explore this site and to research your address and community to learn about the traditional territory upon which you live. And I hope that you'll find this useful. So before we get too much into our topic, I just wanted to recognize the effort that you all have made to stop and take some time for yourselves today, because I know life is busy for all of us. Things are a lot different than they used to be, and so really appreciate you spending some time with us today from wherever you are signing in. So today, the self-regulation tools that we're going to focus on are the physical ones. So you may have heard of many other self-regulation tools, but today we're really going to focus on these sensory and motor tools that you use to take care of your body and your brain, and that your child uses as well to take care of themselves. So we know that if we start with physical self-regulation to take care of the things that your body needs, we can better regulate our emotions, work and learn, play with others, and just manage all the things that we need to do in our daily lives. I hope that you will be able to take something from today's webinar for your own self-regulation toolkit, as well as for your child. So just briefly, the things that we hope to cover today will be an overview of self-regulation, parent self-regulation, something that we call co-regulation, children with ADHD and their tools that they use for self-regulation, as well as some categories of calming and alerting tools within mouth, move, touch, and things that happen in our environment. And just a little bit at the very end about COVID and how this has challenged us to self-regulate as well as for our children. So there are many different definitions of self-regulation, but the definition we will use today explains that self-regulation is the ability to attain, maintain, and change your arousal state appropriately for a task or situation, where arousal is the state of the nervous system and can also be described as how alert one feels. So self-regulation can be described as how well people manage a stress, how much energy you expend to manage that stress, and then afterwards, how well do you recover from it? It includes being able to understand and respond to others and ourselves. So since we're all together here, together and kind of apart, I'm going to get us all to try a little activity together. So now I can't see you or hear you, so you're really protected. You're completely safe to give this a try in your own space. The question here is, can you focus? So we all use tools to help our bodies and our brains be ready to pay attention and learn. And there are no right or wrong tools. We all have different sensory needs, and so we use the things that we have around us. So to help you think about your own specific tools as a parent, I would like those of you at home or at work, wherever you are, if you are fidgeting with something in your hands, I want you to try stop fidgeting. If you are wiggling your foot, I would like you to stop moving your foot. If you are doodling with your pen, I'd like you to try stop doodling. And if you're sitting comfortably with your leg crossed over or with your legs straight or however you're sitting comfortably, I would like you to do the opposite. And if you're using another tool, such as playing with your hair or filling with your pen or looking at your phone and checking your email, please try stop doing all of that as well. And this is just for a few minutes. I would like you to try to pay attention for the next few slides without using your usual self-regulation tools. And I'll let you know when you can stop and go back to being yourself. So when we think of our lives as parents, we are constantly multitasking. We're juggling and we're chasing the list, the never-ending list, I think, of to-dos. And what are some of the things you do to help you cope? Do you exercise? I don't know how many of you have time for that. Drink coffee, we all have time for that. Take a deep breath, hopefully we're all breathing, before tackling something important. Do you go outside? Do you find some space for yourself where you can hear yourself think? Because sometimes when we're in our homes, we don't have that quietness. So what do? So just take a moment right now and just jot down on a little scrap piece of paper. If you're like me, it's whatever is hanging around on the corner or something that you're doodling on. Just jot down a couple of your daily self-regulation tools. I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. I'm going to imagine you're all doing it at home. So if you jotted down something like take a nap, I actually really agree with you whenever we do have a chance. Napping is actually an excellent tool to help us get through our day. So 20-minute naps are what is recommended, but even if you could squeeze in a 5-minute nap, this can actually give you a boost or a recharge during the day. We're going to talk a little bit more about sleep a little later on. So there's a concept here called co-regulation. We learn to self-regulate by observing and taking in what is happening in our environment. So this includes perceiving a stimulus and observing the people in our environments. So we observe and we process what's happening, and we determine how we should respond. So an example is if we were walking down the street and suddenly we see people and they're running in the opposite direction. So we automatically, hopefully, will be alerted to, okay, something's happening and we should respond. So the same example, if we hear a noise outside or something unusual, we hear something unusual, we would look to see how others are reacting or responding to see whether or not it's something we need to react to or do something about. So for children, they learn to respond to their environment by watching how their parents respond in the same way that adults look around and see what's happening and respond. So think of a time when you responded with a big emotion or reaction while you were doing something, and later you heard your child repeat the exact same response, and you went, oh, this is co-regulation. So they're picking up on how we're self-regulating and the tools that we're using. So I want you to think back to when your child was an infant or a baby. What did you do to help your child calm and regulate? So we watched what they were doing, if they were upset or crying because they couldn't speak to us, and we would try. We would feed them, we would change the diaper, hug or swaddle them, we might rock them, they might get cuddles, turn the lights down, play soft music, we would try to keep them warm. So those are all the things that we would have done for our children when they were little. And so as they get older, we continue to do this. We try to figure out what it is that they need to function and manage the things that are happening in their everyday lives. So for children with ADHD, they can lag developmentally behind their peers and often require a little more support than other kids their age, and sometimes for a little longer. This means not only are parents needing to regulate themselves, but they are constantly helping their children to co-regulate. So another note here, children with ADHD often have sensory processing difficulties as well. So this may look like sensory over-responsiveness to everyday stimuli, such as a noise or someone just touching them lightly on the shoulder and they have a huge response to it. It may look like they're seeking a lot of movement and moving around the room a lot more than the other kids their age or in the class. So what types of sensory tools do you notice your child uses? So I'd like you to take a couple of moments now to jot down a few things that you notice your child uses. And I have here just some of the key tools that we notice for children with ADHD. And I have there at the top that co-regulation is actually one of their tools. So whether they're at school or at home, they're looking at you as a parent or at their teacher or at their friends to see what's happening. So that is actually one of their tools, as well as movement, touching things, and sometimes oral sensory seeking. So many of you have probably heard a lot of this before. So children with ADHD are often described as constantly moving or running on a motor, might have difficulty concentrating with distractions or noise in the background, and that causes them to jump from one activity to another. They're playing and touching objects in their environment, fidgeting, wiggling, they can't sit still, or they get frustrated easily, and just maybe a little more emotional than others. So often these behaviors lead to resistance for an activity or an environment in which they haven't had success or have had negative feedback from others, which further, of course, impacts their participation in their daily activities and their overall self-esteem. So we're going to go back for those of you who were able to try this activity. We're going to think about what you were able to do. So I put a stressor on your nervous systems and I took away the tools which you needed to pay attention. I asked you to stop fidgeting, stop wiggling, doodling, or using whatever tools you use to pay attention. And you may have found it more difficult to concentrate on what I was saying because you are now focusing on not fidgeting, not wiggling, doodling, and trying to keep your feet still, you may have found another way to manage. So how did you help yourself stay focused? Did anyone cheat and find another tool to fidget with, or just plain give up? So for many of our kids, they're being asked to do this very thing at school. And this may sound familiar for some of you. Sit at your desk. Stop kicking your legs. Don't move around. Don't tip your chair back and wiggle. Don't touch that. Stop picking at things at your desk. Stop picking at the eraser and the papers and the tape and glue and pencils and your friend and your clothes and so on. So what if we consider that these things that your child is doing, that they're actually trying to self-regulate by doing those things, by moving and wiggling, playing with things and touching stuff? What if instead of asking children with ADHD to stop using their regulation tools, we actually help find a way to help them use them more productively? So I'd like to introduce you to some basic concepts from the ALERT program for self-regulation, which is a practical self-regulation program for children and adults. For more information on the ALERT program, I have included the link in the bottom there, and also I think it'll be in your handouts, because we obviously can't cover the entire program or provide it in this short webinar. We have used this program in the ADHD clinic with parent and child groups to help start them on the road to self-regulation and co-regulation. And the key concept that I'd like to highlight is the engine speedometer concept from the ALERT program. It's intuitive for children with ADHD to understand the engine speeds, and it provides this practical experiential approach, which is really engaging for our kids who need to move and need to put their hands on things to help regulate and learn. So using these engine speeds that you see there, low, just right, and high, parents and kids learn to self-evaluate and determine what they need to feel better or just right. There are, of course, other cognitive and top-down strategies for self-regulation, but for today's talk, I would like you to focus just on the physical strategies of sensory and motor, which help you and your child. Now, when we talk about the physical, sensory, and motor self-regulation tools, we can describe them as calming tools or alerting tools. Calming tools generally are strategies which slow you down, and alerting tools generally are tools which wake or speed you up. The goal is ultimately to go through your day adjusting your engine speed and finding the right tools to get to that just right speed. The main types of tools can be categorized as mouth, move, and touch, or the environment, which includes the things that we see and hear. So now think back a few slides where I asked you to jot down some of the tools which you use and some tools which your child uses. So can you now think of your tools within these main categories of mouth, move, touch, or things that are in the environment? And do you use these tools to slow yourself down or speed yourself up? Does your child tend to need more movement tools than touch tools, or maybe more mouth tools than movement tools? We all have different preferences, and your child may need much more of one type of sensory input than other types of sensory input. You might notice that an example is like after school, your child is full of energy and needs to jump and climb to be able to come back down to just right. Or maybe your child after school needs to have a quiet space to calm down to just right. There is no right or wrong sensory preference. It's just up to us to try to figure out what is going to work and what's not working. So for alerting, have you ever felt, that afternoon slump, that mid-afternoon 2 or 3 o'clock period where you are needing one of those naps that we talked about earlier? Have you ever turned up the radio to stay awake during a drive home at the end of the day? Or maybe got up from your computer to stretch and move around? These are tools which help to wake us up in a positive way. Now, there are also triggers, which are things which wake us up in a negative way, like maybe the loud bang of a car backfiring or someone sneaking up behind you and surprising you. There are alerting stimuli, which can be useful tools, or triggers, which are not tools, but we need to be aware of them so we can problem solve around them, give some warning, and plan for strategies to deal with them. How and when we use our tools depends on the activity we are being asked to do. So for example, if you're trying to help your child stay alert for online learning, then you may need to choose a movement or a mouth tool to get to just right. But you may not use the same tool if you're trying to get your child ready for settling down for bed. So the first category of tools has to do with mouth. So from infancy to adulthood, we use our mouths to self-regulate. So infants start with nursing to regulate. They suck on their fingers and toes, and then they mouth or chew on toys to explore things. We continue to use our mouths not only for obtaining nutrition and for breathing, but to self-regulate. So there's a huge variety of mouth tools that you may use that you didn't realize you used, such as deep breathing, chewing on your fingernails or the top of pens and pencils, or eating crunchy snacks or getting coffee or drink during the day. Maybe you chew gum or bite your lip when you are thinking, or perhaps you put your hands to your face or your mouth when you're really thinking. So any of you at home doing this right now while I'm talking, that's also a mouth tool. So here are some everyday tools that you can explore for yourself and your child. So having a drink on hand, so whether it's a water bottle or a juice box, some chewy food to work the jaw muscles, crunchy snacks to help us stay awake. Most of us remember a time when we've mindlessly eaten like a whole bag of potato chips just to stay awake, or sucking on something to stay calm. So obviously this will be different for everyone attending today since your child may be too young for gum, or you may not want them having too much sugar. So whatever the tool is, choose what works for you and your child to get to just right. So there is one study I wanted to share with you just to share some of the evidence behind gum chewing and mouth tools. This is a systematic review that's published in 2015, and it looked at 22 studies that found that there was a positive effect of chewing gum on attention, particularly sustained attention, which is the type of attention you need to listen to your teacher at school or to something boring. Over half the studies showed that chewing gum helped increase alertness and mood and relieve stress. So if you think gum might be a tool to try, just remember to provide some guidelines and rules around when to use gum, and start with 10 minutes at a time while your child is doing something boring. So there are many studies as well on the benefits of movement and physical activity on productivity, and a lot of just research that supports the use of sensory and motor tools for our kids. So the next type of tool is movement. There are little movements that you can do during the day to help us get through an important task. Most children were not designed to sit on a chair for long periods of time. And actually, adults aren't designed to do that either. So if your child needs to move, then maybe using a little movement tool will be helpful. So think of active sitting, which is those little movements that you do while you're sitting. So a wiggle cushion, a ball chair, a core wobble stool, which looks like two mushrooms put together, moving your arms and legs while you're in sitting. The one note about active sitting is just the same way that we're not designed to sit all day, we're not designed to sit on a ball chair or a wiggle cushion all day either. So having the day broken up with movement such as standing up and changing positions can help both adults and children stay alert. So now I'm sure some of you at home are saying, okay, wiggle cushions, they don't work for my kid. I've tried that, done that, it doesn't work. So maybe your child is a mover and a shaker. Then you may need to explore some bigger movement tools which require the whole body. So this means that if there's like a rain day at school and your mover and shaker of a child has not had enough movement, then they may need to have an extra dose of jumping jacks or hide and seek after school to meet his or her movement needs. So bigger movements do not need to take a lot of time. So even 5 minutes of a good quality, make you sweat, that's what you're aiming for, make you sweat and hopefully make you smile activity, maybe all your body and your brain needs. So physical activity is essential for healthy child development. So looking back, children and adults were more physically active back then than today. So we can remember how good it feels after you've had some physical activity. So physical activity modulates these key neurotransmitters of dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin, which is why it's important for physical and mental health. We don't always have time to fit in a walk or a run or go to the gym. So maybe we can fit in a type of physical activity called heavy work, which requires these bigger muscles to work and gives us more feedback to our bodies and our brains. So try for these short bursts of heavy work. And examples like wall pushes, if you just have 2 minutes, those wall pushes are going to do your brain more good than if you just did some light activity for 2 minutes. The third type of tool is called touch. There are several different types of touch receptors, and the main ones to think about for today are deep pressure and light pressure touch. So deep pressure is more calming in general because it activates the muscles and makes them contract, and sometimes the joints as well. So, and light pressure is intended to alert us. So light pressure is exactly what the word describes. It's a very light kind of tickling pressure. So an example is like when a spider crawls on your leg. So I apologize for those who have a spider phobia, but we've all had that, or something that's lightly touched us, or splashing water on our face. It's alerting, and it keeps us aware of what's happening in our environment. So some deep pressure activities include maybe getting wrapped up in a blanket like these boys are in the picture, hugs with your child or with loved ones, self-hugs, hugging your knees to your chest. If you have a pet, a dog or a cat at home, you may have already noticed the calming effect of sitting with your dog, petting him or her, or just giving your dog a nice hug. You might notice that your kids do that too at the end of the day. So a specific touch tool is our fidget tools. So fidget tools are literally everywhere. You can fidget with erasers, you can fidget with your scarf, people fidget with their clothes. They're not necessarily helpful for everyone, even though your child might come home one day thinking they need one because Johnny sitting next to him at school has a fidget spinner and Bobby over there has a tech deck and I just want one because they're cool. For some kids, it doesn't really help them. And for some kids and adults as well, fidgeting does help. So things like squeezies, stress balls can provide heavy work and deep pressure through the hands. And this is calming. So this can be a great tool to help you regulate your attention. You can fidget with just about anything, but again, it is not always helpful, especially if it's distracting you. So if you use fidget tools, they should help you concentrate and not distract you from the task at hand. So new fidget tools, of course, are always interesting and engaging, so they will likely distract you at first, and then that would be expected until you've had a chance to get used to it. The bottom line is that fidget tools can be helpful for some people who need the touch input for their hands for focusing. So try out a fidget tool for yourself that you think you might be able to use. Try it out for a couple of weeks and see if it is helpful after you've had time to get used to it. So there are many things in our environment which can affect our speeds, from sounds to lights in the room to the people in the room. We tend to be alerted to changes or bigger stimuli in our environments. So in general, turning down and reducing clutter for noise and visual clutter can be calming for our nervous system. So visual strategies include, using dividers as a study carrel, dimming the lights, maybe some table lamps instead of overhead lights. You can try the do-it-yourself glitter jars and lava lamps. And sometimes we just need to close our eyes for a minute to recompose ourselves. So we all have preferences for how much noise we like in our environments. Some of us can concentrate with noise around us. Some of us need complete silence. And some people like to listen to music while they concentrate. So auditory strategies include earplugs or noise-canceling headphones. Some people might use headphones with music, and even wearing a hoodie can be helpful to kind of buffer out that sound at school. So a lot of kids, you might notice, like their hoodies when they're at school. Sensory-rich environments can be over-alerting, and this can be difficult for many of our kids to handle. So one note at the top there is a place to get away from it all, which is basically like making the sensory safe space. So you can try making a home fort or having a sensory safe space at school. So those little small indoor tents that IKEA has are a great option. You can actually make tents out of anything at your house. So chairs and tables, in bed. So be creative and find some space where you think that you could have this little safe space where your child can find a space. So even with all the tools and strategies in our toolkits, We need to remind ourselves that sleeping and eating are key components to how we feel and regulate. So some days we can feel just a little off because we didn't sleep well or even enough, or maybe we missed a meal or we didn't hydrate enough. And the same goes for our kids who often don't eat their lunches or have trouble settling to sleep. So many of you may have experienced your child getting hangry after not eating enough or maybe too late in the day. And even adults get hangry, or I call it tired-agree, when you're tired and angry. So having these quick and easy to eat snacks can be helpful to feed that hanger, and maybe a 5-minute catch-up nap may be what you need to get past that lull in the day. So I am coming back to this slide to help us reframe what our children are telling us with their bodies. What they're telling us with their bodies to feel just right. So if you recognize some of these behaviors with your child, does it help to reframe what they're trying to communicate? So for a child who moves constantly, they need a lot of physical activity and movement. So perhaps using these bigger movements that we talked about and some heavy work. So if your child jumps from one thing to another, then maybe they need these short periods of concentration and alternating between short periods of movement. So maybe your child touches everything, so they might need more touch, like deep pressure or just having something in their hands. If they get frustrated easily or more emotional, then I would start with these basic words from the engine speeds levels and help them learn where their engines are at and what they need. So looking away from tasks and getting distracted, then they might just need to reduce all the distractions in the environment and reduce the movement in the environment. So just a reminder that these strategies are just a small part of an overall treatment plan that you have or are developing with your healthcare provider. So this plan may include other evidence-based, non-pharmacological and pharmacological strategies in a treatment plan for kids with ADHD. So what about COVID-19? What about this little bump that we were thrown in the road for 2020 and I think now 2021? The past year has changed the world we live in. So we have fewer and more modified activities, fewer sports. We have a lot of changes at home and school. There's more remote working and learning, fewer social interactions and screens, and on the whole, we are moving less than pre-COVID. And so if you remember these tools that your child uses, you may see that the less movement activities and less touch, less social, and these masks that make it much more difficult to co-regulate because it's harder to read facial expressions and what people are saying and to hear what people are saying as well. So there's a lot of information on this one. This is all about physical activity because this is one of the big things that our kids are missing. So the key strategy with physical activity in children with ADHD is to alternate the periods of concentration with periods of physical activity. So the maximum time for a period of concentration should be about 15 to 20 minutes, and you want to alternate that with physical activity for all these reasons that we've heard about many times, for our brain and mental health and for physical health. I've also added in here these Canadian guidelines for aiming for this 1 hour of physical activity and less than 2 hours of sitting, which I think with COVID is really, really difficult and even more difficult, I think, as we go with more COVID. So how can we do this? Keep it short and sweet. So here are a bunch of different and fun physical activities to get your heart pumping. One idea is to have an activity jar. So try writing all these activities down, get your kid to put in some ideas too, and pull out one of them for a brain break every day. Try inserting maybe that Minute to Win It game at home. You can check out on YouTube. There's lots of those activities. Set the timer and just go for it. Having a routine helps, and also parent participation. So kids love to see parents doing push-ups and wall pushes and running around the house. So get the timer going and get ready to move. So we've covered a lot of information today, and I know this can feel a little overwhelming when we have all of these ideas in one webinar. So I just want you to think that just by being here, you've already done something for yourself and your child, and this is enough. So your brain needs time to digest and integrate this information, and then you need time to think about how it applies to you and your own family. So if you think there are tools that you need, but you don't have enough of, can you incorporate one of those tools into your own routine for your own self-regulation? And if right now is not the time to be changing any of the routines, that's okay. So I put this slide up so it helps you to look at maybe choosing one of these routines and thinking about, well, which one do I actually have energy for? Because if right now I don't have energy for any of them, that's all right. Then maybe there's one that seems a little more doable, and I could add in something like chewing gum while they're doing homework. Maybe that is doable. We can try that one strategy. So think about just trying one thing. So on the next slide, I've just given some examples. This doesn't mean do them all. Just choose one, just as an example for everyone to see what it might look like. So a few more tips, just meet yourself where you're at, be self-compassionate, non-judgmental, and meet your child where he or she is at. And try to prioritize the tool that you feel that they need the most. Set a routine, stay connected with family and friends as best as you can. Here are some resources, and you're going to get all of these in, I think, the slides when they get mailed out to you. There's some great apps and some YouTube videos that are great, a few routine apps that are here for you to explore a little more. So again, remember your own self-regulation really has to come first. And then your children will co-regulate as they watch you regulate. And these are those main tools. Stay connected, breathe deeply, and I will leave you with, just this quote from Brené Brown, to take care of yourselves, and that what you're doing is enough, and it's okay. So I'm looking at the time, and I'm going to pass it over to Michelle, who's coming back on.
Thank you so much, Miranda. There was so much valuable information, tangible tips and strategies, and just great examples in that presentation. So thank you so much for all of this. And it looks like we have a great amount of time for questions. I've been noticing all the wonderful questions that people have been submitting to the Q&A. So again, if you have a question for Miranda, please submit it in the Q&A icon. There's a button at the bottom if you want to submit anonymously. Just hit select anonymously, and you'll notice beside each question that has been asked, there's a little thumbs up symbol. So if you select that one, it will give that one a vote, and it will go to the top of the list. So if you see a question that's already been asked that you like, please upvote that one. And if we don't get to all of the questions, which we might not, there's a lot coming through, or if you would like more information or clarification on anything, please don't hesitate to email us or contact us at the Kelty Mental Health Resource Center. We'd be happy to further support you that way. And we'll put a slide up at the end with our contact details, as mentioned before. Okay, so I think we'll jump right into the questions so we can get to as many as possible. So the first one, there is actually, I noticed a few different questions on this topic, so maybe we can tackle a few in one go here. So the question is around how do you adapt these regulation activities and strategies for teenagers? So one was a youth who has just been diagnosed at age 15, and then a few other questions about generally how you adapt some of these strategies for teenagers and youth.
That is a great question. Teens, they're really like another species sometimes. You really have to turn your brain around and think about where the things that they're going through as a teen that is so different from when they were little. And so, when you're adding in these other stressors that they're taking on as a teenager, so body changes, emotional changes, hormones changing, we have to think of that as an additional stressor on them that they're trying to manage. And so I think really going back to the comment that I made at the end about starting with where your child is at. So because everyone's kids are different and every teen is different, and you know your kids the best, so figure out where your child is at. We often as parents have these goals that we want our kids to be up. We want them to do this, whether it's, get all these household chores done, get your homework done, get out and do sports and all these things. But maybe our kids are actually, at step 1 still, or maybe they're on step 2 or 3 of that journey towards becoming more independent. And so I think finding out where they're at first, and then to be able to plan together from there will be really helpful. Incorporating some of these ideas of engine speeds can be helpful, but I think that, for teens, their input, they're going to be able to, at their age, tell you the things that work and don't work for them. And as a parent, I do forget that I have a teenager sometimes, and I treat him like a child, and I forget to ask him what his input is. I forget to knock on the door when I do to go in, and I need to remember where they're coming from, and that for teens, they have some ideas of things that do work and don't work for them, and to be able to start there as a conversation point, and then to problem solve with some of these tools together. So I think it's a totally different approach when it comes to teens than with kids, because they are dealing with these things. They're starting to have their own ideas, and are really kind of pushing the boundaries of being more independent and the things that they want to do that we don't always want them to do, and we're trying to work with them through that. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Miranda. So the next question was asked by, or liked by many different people, and it's not specific to self-regulation and its strategies, but hopefully you can point folks in the right direction. The question is, how do you tell the difference between ADHD and other diagnoses that have overlapping signs and symptoms, such as ASD or FASD?
Yeah, this one is a great question, because, I don't diagnose kids, so you definitely, if you have questions about the diagnosis or comorbidities for your child, the first place to start, of course, is your family doctor, your pediatrician, to make sure that they're doing the assessment to help to clarify the diagnosis and point you in the right direction for resources. And in terms of, sensory strategies, it is still very similar, whether your child has ADHD without another comorbidity, another diagnosis, or ADHD and ASD, or ADHD and anxiety. We're still starting at the point of those engine speeds and doing that detective work around, gee, what are the tools that are working? And is this an alerting tool or is this a calming tool? And putting all those pieces of the puzzle together to find out what the toolkit looks like for your child. And so we don't necessarily see more of one type of sensory seeking per se for a certain diagnosis, but the approach is the same in terms of figuring out and helping our kids label their own levels of engine speeds. And once you have that marker and that common language, then you can go from there, and then you're observing as the parent and co-regulating with your child to figure out, oh, wow, you're really active at this time of the day. You really need movement. Or if you're chewing on a lot of things, so you really need a lot of mouth tools. So it's very individual. And so there isn't a specific pattern for ADHD or ADHD and ASD. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. Okay, so the next question is it possible that children are being distracted by the things they're using for self-regulation?
Absolutely. So I always give this example that you can give, if you gave me all these tools to build a house and you asked me to build a house, I really wouldn't know what to do with them. I would, use the hammer somehow, but it's very much the same idea when we find all these concrete tools and we put it in a box and we give it to our kids and we go for it, self-regulate. And they just don't know how to do it. They're like, well, what do? I'm going to take this fidget thing and I'm going to twirl it around, and it's going to hit somebody in the head because they don't know how to use it. And so these tools that we're talking about, they need a lot of direction. And so when you introduce a tool, it's about explaining, this is how we do it, setting the guidelines around it, and some of the rules. An example is like rules around gum chewing. So a lot of teachers don't want gum in their classroom because what happens is the kids get gum unsupervised. And we all know where gum goes when it goes unsupervised. It goes in all these places that they're not supposed to. And so it's important for the teacher to have these very specific rules around gum chewing and to be the person that monitors and guides them on how to use it. So that's what, for all of our kids, whether it's a movement tool or a fidget tool or a mouth tool, they need us to help them learn how to use it. And they also need us to learn how to stop using it when it's no longer a useful tool.
Thank you. So the next question is, do you have any tips or hints for when a sibling is starting to mirror an older sibling who has ADHD, mirror their responses?
Thank you for talking about self-regulation. I mean, this is a great example of co-regulation, and where you're watching how others are responding and what people are doing. So the younger sibling, that would be a natural thing for a younger sibling to do. I'm going to see what my brother's doing, or I'm going to see what my parents are doing, and I'm going to follow, I'm going to copy them, because that's how they're learning how to self-regulate. And so I think when you start working with some of these strategies, they're not just strategies for one child. You're actually thinking of them as strategies for the entire family, because that's what you're all co-regulating together in the same space. And we're all kind of stuck in the house a little more than we used to. So it's even more important that we're not isolating, just doing a strategy just for little Johnny. We're actually doing these strategies for everybody, because they're strategies that will help everyone in the family learn how to measure where their speed is and figure out what tools they need. So it's a little easier to co-regulate.
Great. Okay, so the next one is from a parent who asks, my guy is always making noise. Are there any coping techniques more directed at that? So being able to manage, the physical movement, but the constant noise being really exhausting to everyone in the family.
Yeah. So if we think of those three areas, actually there are 5. So mouth, move, and touch, and then the environment, which is your look and listen. So making noise falls within this mouth category, and it falls within this like breathing as well. So if you've ever screamed at the top of your lungs, or going down the roller coaster and you scream when you come down, we all use our voices and we all breathe. It's a mouth tool. If you feel that your child makes a lot of noise and is doing a lot of that seeking and needs to be making noise, then it is finding a more structured way that may be more acceptable, like socially acceptable, for noise making, such as singing. Let's do a 5-minute sing at the top of your lungs. Or maybe it's changing the environment. If it's bothering everyone else in the house, it could be, okay, let's do the loud singing in your bedroom for 5 minutes. And then you come on, we'll do quiet singing here. So you can make these guidelines and these rules around when and how these tools can be used. I hope that helps.
Thank you. I'm so happy that we're getting to so many questions here. This is fantastic. So the next question is it typical for a child with ADHD to have extreme sensitivity? So for example, not being able to brush hair after a shower due to sensitivity on the scalp.
Sorry, can you say the beginning of the question again, Michelle? I just missed that.
Sorry, yeah. Is it typical for a child with ADHD to have extreme sensitivity? So scalp sensitivity, brushing hair, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's one of the common diagnoses that we see along with ADHD is something called sensory processing disorder. Now, technically, it's not something that that is diagnosed with the DSM-5. However, we do recognize that there are a lot of kids that have extreme sensitivity to light touch. So when you think back to that touch slide that I talked about, deep pressure touch and light pressure touch. So deep pressure touch is really calming, and light pressure touch is this not so calming. So if you have sensory processing difficulties, then you may perceive that, and your brain may process it as pain, and oh my goodness, that hurts, and I need whatever it is to either stop, or I'm going to push you away, or I'm going to run away. And that's what our body does when we feel that we're in danger, because it hurts. And so it is pretty common to see these sensitivities with light pressure touch, sound sensitivities. And so specifically for your question about light pressure touch sensitivity, about the combing the hair, I usually recommend combining some deep pressure touch in with that activity. So it could be just some deep pressure across the head or the scalp. It could be like a little head massage, whatever it is that your child feels is calming for her, and to combine that with a bit of the hair brushing, so alternating back and forth to help her get through that routine.
Okay. So the next question, I think I understand the question, but if I've gotten it wrong, please type in your question again, or put it in the chat and I can ask it again. It's around a parent whose daughter just gets really easily frustrated from just normal, regular activities. So how can the parent help herself regulate and move past that blockage of just getting kind of really easily frustrated with regular, typical activities?
That's a great question. It's a little bit difficult to answer without more information, because I think it depends on what's causing the frustration. So if it's the task, or if it's the environment, or if it's something sensory, or something happened earlier in the day, is it frustration at the end of the day? So I think that one needs a little bit more, it needs a little bit more digging to figure out what it is before saying, oh yeah, we use this strategy. And so if you have someone that you're working with, whether you're working with a psychologist or a psychiatrist or your pediatrician, I think it's helpful to be able to work through what is leading up to that frustration. Sometimes it's frustration because they're being asked to do something that they don't have the skills to do. And so often the difficult skills are sustaining their attention for something that's boring. So listening to me talk is boring. Like it was just listening to a teacher talk is just boring. And you know, for some reason, when parents talk to the kids, like they can't hear us anymore, and so we're even more boring because we're parents. And so if it is because it's a task that they're having difficulty with, then it's breaking down that task a little bit to more manageable pieces for them. But sorry, I can't answer more specifically because I don't know kind of the underlying reasons for the frustration.
And feel free to email us at the Healthy Center with a bit more information, and we can support you as well that way.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so, yeah, thank you. And so the next question is from a parent of a tween who's very resistant and defensive to talking about self-regulation tools and reflecting on their support needs. So in these moments of big emotions, they're unable to draw on these tools and have a meltdown. So how do you teach these skills to a resistant child?
So this is a fantastic question because I'm going to get you guys all to think about when you're really, really, really mad. And if someone came up and said, okay, let's try this. Do you want to talk about it? Nobody's going to want to do that. No one wants to use any new tools right now. This is not the time to add anything new. Because then at that point it's a trigger, because I'm not in the right frame of mind to talk about myself and how I'm going to deal with this. So the best time is actually when your child is just right. So thinking of those 3 levels again, when your child is just right, and also when you as the parent is just right. Because when we're up here and we're not just right, we're not going to be able to have a really good conversation. So finding that middle ground where you guys can meet together. The other important part, you know, if you have a child who's really resistant about even just talking about it, because there's been a lot of talk about it at school, and you know, it seems to be this thing that everyone's asking him, you got to use these tools and self-regulate, then I would go back a step and just focus on parent self-regulation and modeling what it is you would like to see as self-regulation that you do as a parent. So sometimes it's a little strange because you actually say it out loud. I'm really upset. I'm going outside for 2 minutes and I need to breathe. And that's one way of modeling that, hey, I'm not okay right now. And it's okay to say that. But before I do something that I'm going to regret, I'm going to use some tools. I'm going to back away from the situation and I'm going to find some space. Or maybe I need to just walk around the house, or I'm going to sit in the backyard. As a parent, that's where I would start for kids that are kind of resistant about kind of directly talking about their own self-regulation. I hope that helps.
Absolutely. Okay, so there's just looking through, there's a few different questions that have to do with screen time. So I don't think we'd get through this presentation without talking about screen time. So one of them is, will watching too much screen time hurt kids with ADHD? If so, how much is too much? Another question, how best to manage screen time? Hearing that video games are overstimulating, but friends use video games. So if you could speak generally about screen time, how much is too much, and you know, if there's tips you have for different types or how to manage screens.
Oh, I love this question. We could spend all day talking about screens. Oh my gosh, I'm right with you. Can I be in the audience? Like, screens have taken over. They really have taken over our lives and our kids' lives. And for kids with ADHD, so just to give you a little bit of science behind why screens are so engaging for our kids. So when you do something on these tablets or Xbox or PS, whatever number they're on, like when you do something, you get an immediate feedback. And so what that does is it gives us a little shot of dopamine in our brain, and a reward center is like, yes, I got the guy in whatever game they're doing, if they're playing Roblox or something. And so what happens is you get this feedback of, oh, that was awesome, I'm going to do it again so that I can get more dopamine because it feels good. And they have this immediate feedback cycle. And so the more they do screens and video games, the more difficult it is for them to delay their gratification when they go back into the real world, where you can't push a button and have your parents bring your, food to you in your room. You actually have to get up and do something to get these rewards. And so with screens, that's one of the reasons why screens are so addictive for many people, not just kids. I've seen adults also on screens that get addicted. So the general rule that we go by for screens is try to go with 1 hour chunks. If you can go like 1 hour and that's it for the day, that'd be great. I admit my kids are longer than an hour each day because of COVID. It's really just, spiked their screen time up. But the longer, if you go over an hour, the longer you go on a screen, the more of that dopamine that you're getting, the harder it is to pull away from it. So that 1 hour guideline is just a kind of generally a good one to try to follow. And so I hope that kind of helps with that. I'm not going to go a lot into screens, but it's really, I agree, it is very difficult with screens. Set a lot of rules and guidelines around them. There are lots of different apps so that you can control if your child does have their own phone or they have access to a tablet or a laptop. Make sure that you're in charge of the passwords, that they can't get into it. That's harder to do than I'm saying it. It's easy to say, but it's hard to do. So just try your best to try to be the keeper of the keys for all of the screens, because they will try to get more of it any way they can. They're smart.
Oh, thank you. So, yes, absolutely. So I think we have time for one more question. We'll try to squeeze one more in, and then we'll just put up that final slide with our contact details. So the final question is from a parent whose son is in grade 8, and when he gets excited in class, he yells out, and sometimes it's not appropriate. So any self-regulation tools around this?
So I think just going back, to listing those tools that you know your child uses. And I mentioned earlier to try to practice those tools when your child is in just right. So having that conversation, especially as your child's in grade 8, having the conversation about what's happening in class and this engine speed idea, or you're getting really excited and so this is what's happening. So what does your body need? And if he at that point needs to really let it out, then maybe a strategy is to be excused for a minute so that he can go outside and do a big, huge sigh outside. I'm just putting out some ideas there, but working with what seems to be happening, if it is because he's needing some type of a mouth tool, or maybe it could be that he needs a movement tool. Maybe he's so excited that he's got to just get all this energy out, and he's not allowed to move because he's sitting in his seat. So that could be a reason as well. So I think just explore that idea with your son or your daughter about what's happening when something's really exciting. And if your child says, oh, well, I'm just so excited and I'm not allowed to move, but I want to jump up and down, so instead I just have to yelp, then maybe it's okay, let's find a way where we can get you some movement because you're really excited about something. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, and I wish we had time to get to all of the wonderful questions, but unfortunately we don't. So again, if we didn't get to your question, please don't hesitate to contact us at the Kelty Center. And we're going to put up a slide right now that has our contact information on it. So if you'd like to email us, our email address is keltycenter@cw.bc.ca. You can also call us from anywhere in BC. We have a toll-free number, 1-800-665-1822. So again, feel free to contact us. Thank you so much, Miranda, for all of this information and the tools and the examples and the wealth of experience that you bring to this presentation today. Thank you to everyone who took the time to join us today. We really appreciate you giving your time to us, and we hope this was helpful for you. And if you can take 1 minute to fill out the survey, it will pop up when this webinar ends. That would be great, and we'll also send you the link to the survey in a follow-up email tomorrow. So thank you again, everyone, and I hope you all have a great afternoon.
Thank you.